did you?
Hey, what's going on? This is Chris with Modern Dad Council. As you can tell, I'm a little bit raspy. Had a weekend of leadership training. It was my graduation, and in that celebration, I lost my voice.
That's a good reason.
Yeah, Sunday I sounded like a chipmunk. Like I
Nice.
talk like this.
Nice.
That's the only way I could squeak out sound. But what this show is, this is the first show of the new year. And I thought, what better of a time and what greater of an opportunity to kind of talk about, hitting that reset button on your life and, really taking some time to reflect on 2015 and, being honest with yourself and saying, how did I show up? What worked? What didn't work? What were some of my breakdowns? What are some of my breakthroughs? What are some things that I'd like to, renegotiate with myself or my family or what have you, and start to really put together a plan for the new year if you haven't already done that. But so Eric and I have been talking, and you have some amazing news to share about some of the awesome stuff that's coming forward in 2016. So please share with everybody like what's going on with you.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's just one of those times where, that word plan is such a funny word. It's like there are times where, I came from a long history of controlling and planning and needing things to look a certain way. And so when I look at 2015, I'm like, oh wait, no, I didn't make much of a plan, and it turned out perfectly, and so I feel like that's, what I replaced the word plan with is the word faith, not kind of religious faith, but just faith that the right thing will happen at the right time with the right energy, and to let go, and it's also, the time where I realized that I get to call myself a global game changer. And so, I would pray for things in 2015, and then they would show up, and as soon as I tried to make something happen, it would break down, so when I prayed for something and let go and made space for it, everything showed up. And so I'm renegotiating with myself to just reinforce that way of being. So, the concrete things that are manifesting at a pace that I couldn't have even planned, and I'll take it back to late 2014 when I was working for US Air, and I was planting the seeds for the Game Changer movement, and I was booking all these different trips to meet all these different people, including Marianne Williamson. So I intentionally flew to LA 3 times during those 18 weeks so that I could see her seminar on Monday nights when she just shows up, and for $15 you can be part of her community that she has created. And at the end of her seminar just last night, she announced that she's moving to New York City, which is where we have our first Game Changer retreat planned. I mean, it's not in the city, but it's an hour and a half away. And we're actually, we don't know that this is going to fully manifest the way I think it needs to look. But, I'm just going to send it out into the universe now and say oh boy, the stars are lining up, and seeing Marianne in New York City is going to be more likely than seeing her in LA, with my current way of being. Mm-hmm. So all that being said, it reinforces faith, it just says, okay, I had no idea, and I still don't, have an idea of what that relationship will turn into. And yet my heart knows, she's gonna get this, and she already does get this. It's just there's just going to be more intentional ways of collaborating with her, more local, And so we have our first retreat set for April 1st through April 3rd. It's not an April Fool's joke. It's real, and that's going to be at the place where Alex Gray and Allison Gray do their art, and make their amazing cosmic art. It's at the place called the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. And there's no better place for the first Game Changer retreat than, a place like this. Cause the artistic energy that you just feel as soon as you open the door of this facility, it's unbelievable. And then out of thin air, basically, with one of my collaborators in Alaska, she met a woman in she met a woman in California who lives in Brussels, Belgium. So next Thursday or whenever, I'm going to be on a plane to Brussels, so that we can plan our third retreat, and, just because of just going on a YouTube binge, I met all these people online who are movers and shakers in the Internet of Things world, which is what the Game Changer movement is morphing into, so we're creating a new gaming platform that's going to incorporate the Internet of Things into the virtual gaming space so that people can have real life connected experiences that then have some meaningful connection to the virtual world, so that we can better understand that moment between the real and the virtual gaming world. Because that's where, on the negative side, that's where these school shootings happen,
share with real quick, because you're hitting on this, but the one thing that you and I discussed earlier was how you can earn the idea. I mean, the
Right.
vision is that you earn points in the real world,
right.
that then transfer and are applicable to the game itself.
Right. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So we're in the process of creating a family meeting game, and I mean, I'm so sad that Jay's not on the line with us, because he's all about the family meeting, and I want his input and insight, in this process. But the idea is how do we speak our values? How do we live into our values? And it's a perfect thing to talk about in the first week of the new year. What is this year going to look like as a family? If we were going to create a family coat of arms, what would it look like? What would the images be? And maybe that would be one of the outputs of the app or the game, so that the family could create their own, coat of arms with different collages, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But, and then what kind of values are we going to have? Are we going to exercise more? Are we going to do more, joint family adventures together? Are we going to go on road trips? Are we going to take out the garbage? And is mom or dad going to feel alone in that? Or, is there a way to incentivize and put literally these code stickers, underneath the garbage can, so that you only see the code and the reward when you've done the chore, when you've taken out the garbage. So this is how the virtual world gets fed. And so it's really early in development, but we are creating an internal and external reward system. And so then it could equate to the corporate world where these codes could also be placed, in Home Depot, and basically you can do a scavenger hunt while your mom or dad is shopping for tools or whatever for the next Fix-It project. You can look for these codes, and it could make all these things that are sort of people moan about just come alive, So I'm really excited about the fact that within my network of friends that I've already had, that I'm already cultivating and growing with, that all the parts are already there. It's just a matter of integrating them and connecting the dots, so, and I think that's the full circle moment, is that a few years back, I woke up sort of in tears, but sort of not. It's just I woke up and I knew that my my biggest gift to this world is connection and serving as a connector. And I looked around my community and I'm like, oh yeah, well, I introduced that chiropractor to that landlord so that he now has a new location to do, like, expand his business. And I introduced this person to that person, and now, they are the annual funder of this, beautiful banquet, and like, that's who I've been, but it hasn't fortified my livelihood,
Mm-hmm.
So these are things that I've done kind of out of my own generosity.
It's your own natural talent, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so then it becomes like, how do we take a look at our natural talent and say, how do we live, how do we put a roof over our head, food in our bellies?
Totally. So, I mean, like, and that's where it's just like, it's really coming into a centered, grounded, like, oh, that's how. And so, I mean, next week I'm going to Europe, and I'm gonna, like, I was just told that I need to bring a suit because I'm going to, like, the US embassy, like, whatever that means. And like, so, like, I now know that, like, this title of global game changer it's humbly real. It's just like, and we're all that. Like, it's not that it's just me. It's just that, like, now I'm understanding that it's time for the connectors of the world to be just that, and to, instead of competing, let's collaborate. And like, it's time for a sea change, for us to not look at ourselves as silos and islands, but to look at ourselves as, cogs in a bigger set of gears, and that's what really has me alive. And so that was my rant.
Well, you hit on a couple of good things, or not a couple of good things. Everything you said was amazing. So don't let me underplay that by any means. But you hit on a couple of points that I kind of want to go back on and talk about. And the thing is that this game changer movement was your vision. So when you were talking about, like, just kind of seeing what manifests, that manifestation, and I'm being clear for the people watching and everything else, that manifestation doesn't just happen. It's not like Eric sitting at home going, man, sure wish I had this game changer movement thing happening. It takes action. It takes, once you see your vision clearly, the steps to making it possible become a lot more clear. Now, and so that's where, I just want to add that little piece in for everybody watching. It's like, create your vision, know what your vision is, because once you set that goal, you set that, this is my goal, right? Well, what are the things that are necessary for me to reach that goal? And your results are your feedback to how well you're doing the things necessary to reach your goal. If you aren't where you want to be, then you get to renegotiate the way you're showing up. Or, we show up. If we're not getting the life we want, we get to renegotiate how we're showing up, so that, because something is in the gap. There's something being missed that is not helping us to live the life that we truly want to live. And like you also hit on the fact that you haven't quite figured out how to take this, or when you first had this, moment in your life where you're like, oh my God, I'm this amazing connector, but like, how do I make a living being a connector? And that's starting to come into fruition in the sense that you're making all these connections, but through the movement that you're making, or that you've created within your vision. And those are those steps. And so being open to, one of the things that I really struggle with still to this day is prejudging. Judging a book by its cover. I see this guy in these, ratty clothes, and I'm like, well, and maybe he's a bum, and he could be some successful businessman, and that's just the way he likes to carry himself. But we make that immediate assumption who those people are. And so going back to your being open to possibilities is not making that prejudgment of people, not
Mhm.
making prejudgments of situations and everything else, and being open to possibilities of
Mhm.
what exists out there. And because I never would have guessed. I mean, how many people have been watching this show from day one and has seen the progression in our lives? I want to go back now and look at
Right.
last
Yeah.
year's
What does episode 1 look like? You know,
Right.
like Star Wars, right?
Yeah, and just see, one, how did I age over the past year?
Mhm.
How much weight did I gain or lose? I probably
Mhm.
gained. um, but that we get to do that as people in our lives. The problem that I had was I didn't understand that, how to do that, like how to look at my life and go, what's my vision? How do I create a vision? Like that seems kind of foo-foo or like fruity, like, oh, I create a vision. Like, I don't know, I'm just living, man. But when if there's things in your life or areas in your life that aren't what you want, if you're not living that dream when you were a kid and you always thought of yourself as being this or doing that, and you're not doing those things or being that person, there's a breakdown there in you living your true purpose and being the best version of you, or whatever those things are, right?
Mhm.
And so this is the new year. This is the perfect time to say, let's reflect. Let's take a look at where I'm at. When I say set goals, it's the goals are creating that vision and
Mhm.
understanding what it takes to be that.
Mhm.
So, one of the things, I'm here in Salt Lake City today, learning marketing. I'm going to be working with a new marketing company. This is a whole new chapter in my life. A year ago today, I was starting to work with ThinkCharger, and now that's evolved into something bigger and grandiose, so that I never would have imagined that I'd be in this position that I'm in today. But at the same time, there's other things that I had set out and put on my vision board, and that was part of my vision
Mhm.
that I didn't complete and I didn't fulfill. And so I get to reflect and say, wow, why didn't those things get done?
Mhm.
Where were my priorities?
Mhm.
And so reflect on that, say, okay, these are the adjustments I want to make, and then move forward, doing those things. And then, and I was talking to Eric about this earlier, because my cousin made this video game, and it was a really cool game, but it was very free flowing.
Mhm.
There was no like, oh, I won, or I've progressed further in the game.
Right. Where's the sense of achievement that people intrinsically want? Yeah.
Exactly. And so my feedback to him was, have those goals, or have those benchmarks that you hit, so that you can see that improvement. Well, those benchmarks are those steps or those mini goals to reach that big goal, right?
Right. Right.
So,
And I think like the word goal is a very interesting one, because there were times where I was in goal driven mode, and I didn't see all the amazing miracles that were showing up because I was so goal driven. And I think it's like a really interesting, I'm kind of notorious for like shifting words and choosing different words, and just like choosing energetic words that I mean, the idea of, who do I want to be rather than what do I want to do, so like,
exactly. Yeah. So those goals become that vision that you have, not
right.
necessarily. And here's the other thing. And this is another point that you were hitting on, when you were talking about all these things, amazing things that you're creating. You have this vision, but if you're not flexible and open to possibilities of how this vision is going to work, let's say, for example, the Brussels connection that your partner made, and now you're going to be flying out to Brussels. Well, if your vision was, I'm going to create, something in my local community, and then I'm going to grow it into my, city, and then the state and everything else, and that was your vision.
Right.
That's how you saw it growing. And this opportunity presents itself, and you go, that's great, but that's not my vision.
That's a distraction, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, well, But that is the possibility of maybe this is going to grow into something greater that then ends up coming to your local community in a bigger, grandiose, way, as a like Marion Wilson, Marion Wilson
Williamson. Yeah,
Williamson. Sorry about that.
yeah.
But with her moving to New York, well, now this, like, oh, you can go to Europe, you can get some things going there. You go to New York, you get some things going there. And next thing you know, maybe on like a government level, a very high level, people are enrolled in your vision. And now this becomes this like standard workshop that schools across the country are putting on. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you were so,
and that's I mean, like, that's in a way, like, even this word disruption that was sort of my word for 2015. And I feel like my word for 2016 is connection. So and it takes the edge off of disruption. Like, and I feel like I think I was just this is somewhat of a side story, but not really. So when I was a teenager and like early 20s, I would go out dancing, and like, just to paint the picture, like, I bought a pair of Capizios. So I had like these patent leather shoes. Like, I was into it. Like, there was a character that was waiting for me to fill in to, like, every Friday and Saturday night. And I mean, mind you, like, during the day, probably from 4 p.m. to midnight, I was working as a homeless advocate, at a shelter in my community in Port Jeff Station. And then I would go out dancing, and I would literally, I would just like assume this role of space holder. And what I mean by that is I would create the circle, so, like, from a very early age, it was clear that, like, my role is to go out and create space. So I would, like, dance like a lunatic, like, who had moves, right? And then, like, then a circle would form around, and then I would, like, step back from the circle and invite more people into it. You know what I mean? And that's exactly, like, that's the pattern. That's my essence. Like, that's who I know myself to be. So here I am again, in this, like, this game changer world, stepping into a very, crowded dance floor that is distracted, it's confused, it's got a lot of mega marketing budgets, but I'm going in and I'm on that dance floor, and I am, like, gonna dance like a lunatic, and let this shine, and then we get to hold the space for the next generation. Okay, yeah, I've created this hole in the dance floor. Now you guys fill it, like, with your essence. Like, I've done my job, and now it's time for, and that's what I'm good at. Like, that's my gift. And so, like, just unapologetically, and I feel like, 2014 was such a potent year, because, like, 2014 was when I met, Wayne Dyer before he passed away. And, our interaction, like, the last thing I said to Wayne, the Dr. Wayne Dyer, was, like, I'm sorry. And, like, because I just felt my guidance, and I went backstage, and I had this great conversation with him. And then I said, I'm sorry, because his, people mover person was trying to usher him along. And he looks me square in the eye, and he says, Eric, don't ever apologize for doing what you're called to do. And I'm like, okay, okay, okay. Like, take that in, like, integrate that, let that, like, humbly, be the kernel of, like, what drives you to be you, and let yourself know that it's perfectly okay. In fact, it's imperative that you be you. And, like, I think that's what I love about the Modern Dad Council, is that we get to, like, hold each other accountable to our highest selves. And, like, if we didn't have this touch point with each other, I don't know if we would have all had the courage to lean into the amazingness that, like, lean in and find our greatness and be it unapologetically,
Right.
And like that's like,
And not only unapologetically, but as a badge of pride. Like, this is who I am. This is what makes me unique. I don't have to shave my head and color my hair all funky colors because I'm unique in here.
right.
I don't need to have some facade or some mask on to stand out or to get the attention or the attraction that I'm looking for. I have that individuality right here. And
Yeah.
have you seen that YouTube video on how to start a movement?
Oh yeah, the guy that's dancing. Yeah, perfect.
That was the vision I had when you were saying that. Is like the guy like doing whatever
Right.
he's doing, and then all of a sudden he gets his buddy over there.
Right.
And
it's the second, like, I mean, I think, that's what the guy was talking about, is like, it's the second person that believes in you that is willing to be the first follower, right? And that's, that's what the Game Changer movement, like, that's what the Modern Dad Council, feels like. It feels like, we all get to be each other's first followers, and that's really beautiful. Like, my good friend, Antika, like, she was a first follower, and it's so important. Like, she invited Carol to the dance, in Brussels, and like, it's so important. It's almost more important to have a first follower than it is to have a great, crazy dancer, because like, the first follower is really,
validation.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, and I think Peter Diamandis, said this, as he was writing the book Abundance, the future is better than you think. He said, like, all the best ideas, all the best amazing inventions were crazy ideas the day before they transformed the world. And I feel like that's
an accident. Silly putty's an accident. Like,
right.
All these amazing
Reese's peanut butter cups, like, I mean, Viagra is an accident. Like, I mean, like, that was supposed to be a heart medication, so like, there's this one, office manager, administrator, who like was realizing that no one was returning the samples from a failed medication. And so she added one question to the exit interview: why won't you return the samples?
Because it makes mine.
Right. Makes me work better.
There you go.
And because she added that one question to the exit interview, now she's a 1% shareholder in one of the biggest, franchises that the medical community has ever experienced. No pun intended. So you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, and I think that's, it's going with your gift, like, having the audacity to ask the question that nobody else is asking, because you're in the position to ask it, and so, like, getting back to the Game Changer movement, like, when the Sandy Hook shootings happened, I was radicalized, like, we're throwing that word around in the worst possible way. Like, we're saying that these people in ISIS are radicalized. Like, no, I was radicalized to love kids and to hold the space for their healing and for their, their journey. And so, like, it's just so important to, like, breathe in, like, yeah, like, if someone is going to be radicalized to kill, like, we need people who are radicalized to love, like, in a really fierce, amazing, solid way. And that's how I was tapped, and like, when you were radicalized to be you and to say, like, I'm gonna hold the space, like, you were the lone dancer, who said, like, I want to hold the space for dads, and for new dads, like, this is not my father's Oldsmobile. This is a new fatherhood,
Yep.
This is new stuff.
And that doesn't mean that doesn't come with self-doubt.
Right.
That's part of being a leader, because that's what you're talking about. You're talking about being a leader, whether it's a leader in your own life or a leader in others. You don't have to have followers to be a leader. Right? You lead your life. And as long as you're meeting, you're meeting your own values and everything else. Like, you don't have to second guess yourself. And I'll be perfectly blunt and honest here. I struggle with that more than anything. This limited belief, this I'm not good enough, or I lack thereof, or, who am I to deserve that, but we're all deserving.
Oh, sure.
We all have our gifts. We all have unique talents and ways that we can show up in this world. And we just don't necessarily know what they are. And that's what I love. And I got to say, I wish Jay was on here too, because that's like Life Possibilities, his workshop. Like, the first time that I was ever asked what I was good at. Like, what are you good at? What are you passionate about?
Right.
What makes you tick? I don't
know.
I've always,
like, how old were you when you were asked that? Like, did Jay ask you that?
Yeah, that was like, what, 3-4 years ago now? I mean, like, I was like, I started crying. No shit.
Sure. Right. Well, I mean, and like, I love that story, because, like, I mean, when I was, back when I was 20 and going out dancing, like, I was working at this homeless shelter, and I asked this 62-year-old man, like, what he was born to do, what his dreams were. And same exact thing. He breaks down crying. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm 20 years old. I'm like, did I screw up? Like, is it PTSD? What did I do? And he's like, nobody has ever asked me that before.
My stepdad, nuclear engineer, highly successful in his field. Same thing. He's like, nobody ever asked me that. I don't even know why I'm a nuclear engineer. Like, it's just college kind of presented it. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that seems like an interest. I was going to be an engineer. Why not a nuclear engineer? Because that's an up and coming thing. So that's what he did.
Right.
40 years later, he's looking at his life going, what kind of impact did I have? Now, don't get me wrong. My stepdad is an amazing man.
Sure.
He's loving. He gives to the community. He all that. But he looks at his life with regret. And I'm not saying that he regrets his whole life. So don't take it to an extreme, right? But there's things that he regrets about his life, because he says, man, I could have done more. I could have, I had this vision of who I could have been as far as a giver, because he's a giver. He's a huge heart. But he didn't know how to do that outside of the realm of engineering, because that's what he was supposed to go to school for. So that's what he did.
Right.
And 40 years later, looking back, going, I could have done way more. And that's the whole purpose of this show, right? Do you want to look back on your life and go, dang it, what more could I have done? And I mean, I feel like, regardless of how I show up, I'm going to say there's more I could have done. There's more people I could have saved. There's more dads out there that I could have helped, or kids that we could have changed their lives with the Game Changer movement. We're always going to have that feeling, but there's still going to be that, like, those kids that write those letters that say, thank you so much. Because I didn't know who I was. I was lost.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all lost, and like, we're all lost and re-lost, and I feel like that's, what's so great, about who we get to be for each other, on the Modern Dad Council. Because, like, we're all your second dancer, like, Jay, me, like, like, we get to be your second dancer. And then when you know what I mean?
I do.
Like,
and I'm humbled by that.
Right.
Because when I did this, it was kind of like I don't know if I can make this happen. All those limited beliefs, that self-doubt and all those things. And we've surpassed the year mark of this show.
Right.
So this vision that I had, not only did it work the first time I tried it, it's held on for over a year, because, like, to your point, I've got dancers that are following, or not necessarily following, but emulating and expanding on that vision. And that's how we start global change.
Yeah. And that's the only way to do it, really, nowadays, is like, do our dance, be the change, right? Like, be the change, and then like it's the second dancer. Like, and maybe that's like a blog or a video that I would love for us to like, you know, dive into, like, you know, how do we get our second dancer, you know, and what does it mean? Like, how do we celebrate them? Like, I know that you know, I don't celebrate my second dancers enough, you know, and I want to get better at that, you know, and so like maybe that's where I have the most growing to do this year. Like, I know that even when you were showing up, like, you know, wanting to edit, you know, different videos, like I was so overwhelmed and but also so, you know, excited to take part of your gift that I didn't know how to celebrate you. Like, you know, I turned into expectation mode, and I'm just like, you know, I want to take this very, you know, public platform to say like, you know, you've taught me how to get better at appreciating, you know, and like, you know, I'm now wanting to become a better person because of our interaction. And like, I'm humbled that you're still in my world, even though like, you know, I'm still learning along the way. Because like, you know, like we've never filled these shoes before, you know, so we're all making it up as we go along. And, you know, because it is a new modern day of dadding, you know, like, as a verb, you know, like, you know, it's just like, we're going to screw up. And like, you know, I'm screwing up, you know, passionately, you know, out of love. And it's just, it's great that we get to, you know, stay in the ring with each other and be like, okay, you know, like maybe that didn't go exactly right. Or maybe I didn't appreciate, you know, I mean, like, I'm reading this book and it's hard because it's like, it's called Flourish. It's by Martin Seligman, like the quote unquote father of positive psychology. And like, he talks about this gratitude meeting or appreciation meeting, like where you're supposed to like think back in your life to someone who showed up for you in a way that they didn't have to, and like just go like create a card for them and like show up and just thank them, you know, like let them know how much like whatever they did to show up meant. And like, so I mean, in this moment, like I remember what it was like for you to take a video that I had recorded, you know, and like adding your heart and your gift to it. Like, thank you. Like, it's just like it's amazing to feel, you know, what it means to have you as a second dancer. And so yeah, I had no idea that this show is going to go in this direction, but it's a ripe and raw new year, right? You know, here we are living into our dreams, and I'm like,
goosebumps, brother.
what?
I got goosebumps. I was like, I'm feeling such love right now. But
Yeah.
you are absolutely right, and it actually brings up so I talked about how I lost my voice in this leadership 3-month VIP leadership class, and this weekend was the culmination of it all. Mm-hmm. And I'm on a team of 75 people, like amazing, right? Mm-hmm. And when I say a team, like we're more like a family. Sure. At this point. 3 months together, going through, you know, pushing each other to be the best version of ourselves. And through this process, there was like times like, hey, if somebody did this or did that for you, write them a letter. And then they did these like letter collections throughout the 3 months. And like, as I'm going through it and I'm doing it, I didn't really think that much of it. You know, I wrote, you know, maybe a dozen letters, but I never really thought much of it, of like what the purpose was behind them. I just put my heart on paper and for that particular person that touched me in a certain way at a certain point, right? So I give that letter. And then they had this exercise where they had taken all the letters in these tubs, and they, you know, we're in a circle. They dump the letters in the middle of the circle, and you're holding this back like an envelope. Mm-hmm. And they go around and they give everybody the letters. So I'm thinking, okay, you know, maybe I'll get 5 or 10 letters. or whatever of, because the letters are supposed to be how you, Eric, you impacted me with the conversation that we had yesterday, and I was really heartfelt, or whatever the letter would be, right? Sure. So I'm telling you that I appreciate you for something that you did that showed, the way that you showed up in my life. I appreciate that. So that's what all these letters are, letters of appreciation. I had a stack like this. This bag was just filled with letters of people appreciating me at some moment when I didn't even realize I was doing something to be appreciated for. And it just, I couldn't hold it in. It was my heart was on my face. Mm-hmm. Now my throat's suffering from all of that sobbing, but wow, one of those moments. And so I guess my thing to you is you get to write some love letters this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So that would be, a challenge to the listeners. Somebody does something for you that touches you, write them a letter. My daughter's principal just posted on Facebook this morning a letter that a student wrote him, and he goes, "This is reason 100,464,000 that I love my job as a principal," and with this letter, and it's I think when we write the letter, we don't realize the level of impact that it's going to have on the person.
Right.
And if you've never received a letter like that, you don't realize how much it's going to affect you when you do.
Well, and I know we need to wrap it up, but it's all about the 2016 word for my year is connection. Is when you close that loop, you actually open a loop. Who doesn't want to give way more to someone who just took the time to write them a letter or make a trip to visit them just to say thank you. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's what I loved about, flying, working for US Air, now American. And I feel like I might apply for a job at Delta, so I can go and thank people in person, and and that's how I want to build bridges across this entire planet, is one-on-one, one relationship at a time. And those kind of connections, they're going to be in your corner for the rest of your life. And so I still remember what it felt like to say thank you to someone who did something amazing for me 30 years ago. And the statute of limitation is forever, they will always take that thank you, yeah. Much like they'll always take the apology too, So yeah, thank you for a powerful outlet for us to be, and to find our greatness and to be reminded of our greatness every time we show up every week, and that's, I'm so grateful that we get to be each other's second dancer and that we can lean in to that. So
I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. 'Cause this has been beautiful. And I know there's people watching this going, wow. So thank you. This has been the Modern Dad Council. I mean, it is late. I got to wrap it up, but Eric, thank you so much. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you for showing up to life. Thank you for showing up for your vision, and being open to what that means. Because we need you in this world. That this world's kind of got some bad stuff happening within it, and it's game changers like you that get to right the ship or straighten things. And at the same time, I'm humbled to be able to have launched a platform for this to live as well. Mm-hmm. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you everybody watching for being enrolled in my vision of what the Modern Dad Council is and can be. So
awesome. Well, happy New Year.
And happy New Year.
Love you guys. Love everyone. Yeah. All righty.
All right. Well,